My name is Evelyn, and I am 28 years old. But 6 years ago, I had a different name, a different life, and a different family. On my college graduation day, I stood in a stadium surrounded by 3,000 people. My family promised they would be there. I searched the crowd desperately, looking for their faces, but found only empty seats where they should have been sitting. Later, I discovered it was not an accident. They skipped my graduation on purpose. That day changed everything. Before I tell you why I vanished, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from today. And if you have ever felt invisible to the people who should love you most, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. This story might feel familiar to you, and I promise it has a powerful ending. So stay with me, because what I am about to share will show you that sometimes disappearing is the bravest thing you can do. I grew up in suburban Indianapolis, Indiana, in a house that looked perfect from the outside. We had a big lawn, a two-car garage, and neighbors who waved at us every morning. My father, Richard, was a successful real estate developer who always seemed to be closing some important deal. My mother, Judith, was a former beauty queen who never quite let go of her pageant days. She cared deeply about appearances, about what the neighbors thought about how our family looked in Christmas photos. I was the middle child of three. My older brother Marcus was 4 years ahead of me, and my younger sister Delilah was 3 years behind. From the very beginning, our family had a clear hierarchy, and I was at the bottom of it. Marcus was the golden child. He was tall, athletic, and charismatic in ways that made everyone in the room gravitate toward him. He played football in high school and was so good that he earned a full scholarship to the state university. Every single family dinner revolved around Marcus and his achievements. Dad would ask about his games, his stats, his coaches. Mom would beam with pride whenever he walked into a room. Marcus could do no wrong in their eyes. Delilah was the baby, the princess, the one Mom saw as her mini version. She was beautiful in that effortless way that made people stop and stare. Mom enrolled her in pageants when she was just 5 years old, and Delilah took to it naturally. She became a cheerleader, an Instagram influencer, before influencers were even a thing, and the center of Mom's entire universe. Thousands of dollars went to her clothes, her makeup, her competition fees. Nothing was too expensive for Delilah. And then there was me, the quiet one, the bookworm, the afterthought. I was not athletic like Marcus. I could not throw a football or run fast or command attention when I walked onto a field. I was not glamorous like Delilah. I did not have her bone structure or her natural grace or her ability to charm a room full of strangers. What I had was intelligence. I was curious about everything. I loved reading, loved learning, loved the feeling of understanding something complicated for the first time. But those qualities did not impress my parents. Not even a little bit. I have so many memories of being forgotten, of being overlooked, of being invisible in my own home. When I was 10 years old, I had a solo singing part in my school play. I practiced for weeks, memorizing every word, perfecting every note. On the night of the performance, I stood on that stage and looked out at the audience searching for my parents. They were not there. Marcus had basketball practice that night, and apparently that was more important. When I was 12, I won the county spelling bee. I beat 47 other students to take first place. There was a trophy ceremony afterward, and I stood at the podium holding my award, scanning the crowd for my father. He was not there either. He had a golf game he could not miss. When I was 14, I made the honor roll for the sixth semester in a row. I brought home my report card, all A's, and waited for some acknowledgement. My mother barely glanced at it before sticking it in a drawer. The refrigerator was already covered with Delilah's pageant photos. There was no room for my certificates. When I was 16, I got accepted into a prestigious academic summer program at Northwestern University. It was a huge honor, one that could help me get into top colleges. The day I was supposed to leave, I sat in the living room with my suitcase waiting for someone to drive me to the bus station. An hour passed. Then two. My parents had forgotten. They were at Marcus's engagement announcement party and simply did not remember their daughter needed to catch a bus. I ended up taking 3 different buses to get there myself. My high school graduation was barely mentioned because Marcus was getting engaged that same weekend. The party for him overshadowed everything. I walked across the stage to get my diploma, and my family was too busy planning his celebration to notice. By that point, I had learned to stop expecting. I stopped hoping. I stopped asking for attention or acknowledgement or love. I buried myself in my studies because at least my grades could not disappoint me. At least my books did not forget I existed. When I earned a full academic scholarship to the University of Michigan, I thought it might finally be my chance. A fresh start. A place where I could matter. But when my parents dropped me off at my dorm, they stayed for exactly 2 hours before leaving to visit Marcus in Chicago. They barely helped me unpack. They did not take photos or cry or tell me they would miss me. They just left. College became my sanctuary. For the first time in my life, I was somewhere that I was not the invisible middle child. I was just Evelyn, a smart girl with big dreams and the work ethic to achieve them. I threw myself into my studies, double majoring in biochemistry and public health. I worked harder than anyone in my classes because I had something to prove, even if I was the only one keeping score. I made real friends for the first time. My roommate Grace became like the sister I never had. My study partner Marco pushed me to be better. My mentor Professor Davidson saw potential in me that my own parents had never bothered to look for. I discovered a passion for medical research, specifically infectious diseases and antibiotic resistance. I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted my life to mean something. Senior year, everything came together. I was accepted into the PhD program at Johns Hopkins University, one of the most prestigious programs in the country. Full funding. A research position. Everything I had ever dreamed of. I was going to be the first person in my family to pursue a doctorate. I called my mother to share the news, my heart pounding with excitement. Mom, I said I am graduating magna cum laude. And I got into Johns Hopkins, the PhD program. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That is nice, honey, she said. But listen, Delilah just got engaged. We are so excited. And just like that, the conversation shifted. She spent 20 minutes talking about Delilah's ring, about her fiancé Brad, about wedding plans and venues and color schemes. My acceptance to one of the best programs in the world got exactly 4 seconds of acknowledgement. But I still believed. Foolishly, desperately, I still believed that graduation day would be different. This was too big to ignore. I was receiving an award. I was going to Johns Hopkins. They would have to see me this time. They would have to be proud. I sent formal invitations to everyone in my family. I texted reminders every week. I even offered to pay for their hotel rooms using money I had saved from my part-time job. My mother assured me they would be there. Of course we will be there, she said. It is your graduation. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. 2 weeks before graduation, I threw myself into planning every detail. I wanted everything to be perfect. This was my moment, the culmination of 4 years of hard work, and I was determined to make it special. I reserved 4 seats in the family section of the stadium, one for my mother, one for my father, one for Marcus, and one for Delilah. I called the events office 3 times to confirm the reservation, terrified that something would go wrong. I even requested specific seats in the front row so they would have a clear view of the stage when I walked across to receive my diploma. I booked a restaurant for a celebratory dinner afterward. It was a nice Italian place near campus, the kind of place I could never afford on a regular basis. I saved $300 for that dinner, skipping meals and picking up extra shifts at the campus library. I imagined us sitting around a white tablecloth, my family finally asking me questions about my research, my plans, my future. I imagined my father raising a glass and saying he was proud of me. I imagined my mother smiling at me the way she smiled at Delilah. I bought a new dress to wear under my graduation gown, navy blue, professional, elegant. I spent hours at the mall trying on options, looking for something that said, I am successful and I matter and please see me. I practiced walking in heels in my dorm room so I would not stumble on stage. I did not want anything to go wrong. Professor Davidson wrote me a beautiful letter of recommendation and mentioned me in the departmental newsletter. The announcement said that I would be receiving special recognition as the outstanding senior in biochemistry. My research on antibiotic resistance was cited as exemplary work that would continue at Johns Hopkins. For the first time in my academic career, I felt visible. I called home every week to confirm that everyone was still coming. Every time I got reassurance. My father told me he would not miss it for the world. Marcus said he would drive everyone up from Indianapolis a 4-hour trip, and that I should not worry about a thing. Delilah said she could not wait to see me, and that she was already picking out an outfit. Everything seemed aligned. For once in my life, everything seemed like it was going to work out. I even started to wonder if maybe I had misjudged my family all these years. Maybe they just did not know how to show love. Maybe graduation would change everything. Maybe this would be the moment that finally brought us together. 5 days before graduation, I called home to confirm their hotel arrival time. I wanted to make sure I could meet them at the hotel and maybe grab breakfast together Saturday morning before the ceremony. My mother answered and her voice sounded distracted. "Oh, about that," she said. My stomach dropped. "Delilah's engagement party got moved to this weekend," she continued. "Brad's parents can only do Saturday, so we had to adjust everything." I stood frozen in my dorm room, unable to process what I was hearing. "But my graduation is Saturday," I said. "The ceremony is at 2 o'clock. I know, honey, but this party has been planned for months. We will watch the live stream or something." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. "Mom, I am receiving an award. I am the first person in our family who is going to get a doctorate. Can not you ask them to move the party to Sunday?" My mother sighed, and I could hear the irritation in her voice. "You know Delilah cannot just change everything for you. Do not be selfish, Evelyn. This is her moment." Those words echoed in my head long after we hung up. Do not be selfish. This is her moment. As if I had ever had a moment. As if anything had ever been about me. I sat on my bed and cried for an hour. Grace came home and found me there, mascara streaking down my face, and she held me while I sobbed out the whole story. She told me I deserved better. She told me my family was wrong. But none of it made me feel better. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Hey sis, ignore mom, I will be there. Promise." I stared at those words and hope flickered back to life in my chest. At least Marcus would come. At least one person would see me walk across that stage. At least I would not be completely alone. I texted back immediately. "Really? You promise?" His response came quickly. "I promise. I would not miss it." I held on to those words like a lifeline. I bought an extra reservation at the restaurant just for the two of us. If it was only Marcus, that would be enough. That would be something. Thursday before graduation arrived. Marcus texted me to confirm he was driving up Friday night. I cleaned my dorm room obsessively, wanting everything to be perfect when he arrived. I set out the dress I would wear to dinner, laid out my cap and gown, organized my honor cords. Gold for magna cum laude. Blue for biochemistry honors. Friday morning, I texted Marcus asking for his estimated arrival time. No response. Friday afternoon, I called him. The phone went straight to voicemail. Friday evening, I finally got through. "Hey," he said, and something in his voice made my blood run cold. "Hey," I said. "Where are you? I thought you were driving up tonight." "Yeah, change of plans. Dad needs me at some investor meeting Saturday morning. Really important client. Could be a huge deal for the company." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "But you promised. The ceremony is at 2. You said you would be there." I know. "Look, the meeting should end by noon. I will drive straight there after. I will probably make it by the end." "Save me a seat." "Okay," I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him that probably was not good enough, that I will try was the same thing as I do not care. But I was so desperate for someone to show up that I swallowed my anger. "Okay," I said. "Just please try. I got you, sis. See you tomorrow." That night I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my stomach churning with anxiety. Grace asked me if my family was definitely coming, and I told her yes, my brother would be there for sure. She looked at me with something like pity in her eyes, but she did not say anything. I set out my dress, my heels, my cap and gown. Tomorrow was the day I had worked 4 years for. Tomorrow I would finally matter. Saturday, May 17th. Graduation day. I woke up at 6 in the morning, too anxious to sleep any longer. The sun was barely up, but I was already out of bed, pacing my small dorm room, checking my phone every 30 seconds for messages that were not there. I took a long shower, letting the hot water calm my nerves. I dried my hair carefully, styled it the way I had practiced, and did my makeup with steady hands. Navy dress on, cap and gown crisp and unwrinkled, honor cords draped around my neck, gold and blue symbols of everything I had worked for. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone who had accomplished something, someone who mattered, someone who deserved to be celebrated. I checked my phone. No messages from my family. I texted Marcus. Cannot wait to see you. Ceremony at 2. Section C for family. No response, but it was early. He was probably still asleep or getting ready for his meeting. Grace helped me pin my honor cords so they hung just right. She was graduating too, with a degree in communications, and her family had arrived the night before. All 8 of them. They had taken over an entire floor of a nearby hotel and were already texting her about breakfast plans. "You look amazing," Grace said. "Your family is going to be so proud." I smiled, but something cold and heavy was sitting in my stomach, a feeling I could not name, a dread I could not shake. I arrived at the stadium at noon, 3 hours before the ceremony, because I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. I checked in, got my program, found my seat in the graduate section. 3,000 of us all in matching caps and gowns, all about to begin new chapters of our lives. I opened the program and found my name listed under special recognitions. There it was in black and white. Evelyn Marie Porter, outstanding senior in biochemistry. My heart swelled with pride. I took a photo of the page and sent it to the family group chat. "Look," I wrote, "I am getting an award." Delilah responded almost immediately. "Cool. We are setting up for the party. It looks so pretty." She attached a photo of engagement party decorations, pink and gold balloons, a banner that said, "Congratulations, Brad and Delilah," a table full of champagne glasses. I stared at that photo for a long time. They were really not coming. They were setting up a party while I sat alone in a stadium waiting to graduate. But I still had Marcus. He had promised. 1:45. Graduates lined up in the corridor preparing to walk into the stadium. I kept checking my phone, refreshing my messages, hoping for something. At 1:30, Marcus finally texted, "Meeting running long, still trying, not on my way, not I will be there, still trying." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. 2 o'clock. The ceremony began. 3,000 graduates filed into the stadium to the sound of pomp and circumstance. 10,000 guests filled the seats, waving signs and cheering. I walked to my assigned seat and immediately craned my neck to find Section C, the family section. I spotted it easily. Row after row of proud parents and siblings and grandparents. And there, exactly where I had reserved them, were 4 empty seats. The chairs I had requested. The chairs I had confirmed 3 times. Empty. All around me, other students were surrounded by cheering relatives, signs with their names painted in bright colors, balloons bouncing in the wind, flowers ready to be thrust into their arms. One girl next to me had a sign that said, "Dr. Jessica, we are so proud." Another had her entire extended family wearing matching t-shirts with her face printed on them. I had no one. Grace was across the stadium, but I could see her waving at her family, blowing kisses, pointing at them excitedly. She caught my eye and mouthed something. "Where is your family?" I shrugged and pretended it was fine. The ceremony proceeded. There were speeches I barely heard, musical performances I could not process, honorary degrees given to people whose names I would never remember. I sat in my seat and kept checking my phone. Nothing from Marcus. Nothing from anyone. 3:30. The special recognitions began. "Outstanding senior in biochemistry," the announcer called out. "Evelyn Marie Porter." I stood up on shaking legs. I walked to the stage, somehow not tripping in my heels. The department chair handed me a plaque, and Professor Davidson shook my hand. "We are so proud of you," she said. I managed to smile for the photo, but when I turned to look at the crowd to find the faces of the people who loved me, I saw only those 4 empty chairs. I walked back to my seat, clutching my plaque like it was the only thing keeping me upright. 4 o'clock. Names were called alphabetically for diplomas. Evelyn Marie Porter, the announcer said. Magna cum laude, Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and Public Health. I walked across the massive stage, accepted my diploma from the university president, shook hands, moved my tassel from right to left. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. I felt absolutely nothing. 4:45. The ceremony ended. Graduates flooded onto the field, families rushing to meet them. Everywhere I looked, there were embraces, tears of joy, flowers being pressed into waiting hands, fathers lifting daughters onto shoulders, mothers sobbing about how proud they were. I stood alone in my cap and gown, holding my diploma and my plaque, watching everyone else be loved. A mother near me grabbed her son and wept. "I am so proud of you, baby, so proud." A father swept his daughter into a bear hug so tight she laughed and complained she could not breathe. Two grandparents shuffled toward their grandson, tears streaming down their weathered faces. And I stood there, alone, invisible, forgotten. I checked my phone one last time. Text from Marcus sent at 4:15. "Sorry, sis. Could not make it. Meeting went crazy. Congrats, though. Congrats, though." 2 words to summarize 4 years of work. 2 words to excuse breaking a promise. 2 words that meant nothing. I opened Instagram, and there it was. Delilah had posted 15 photos of the engagement party. The captions were full of exclamation points and heart emojis. Celebrating love with our favorite people. The photos showed everything. My mother smiling wider than I had ever seen her smile at me. My father raising a champagne glass in a toast. Marcus laughing at something someone said. Delilah glowing in a white dress that probably cost more than my entire graduation outfit. The timestamps showed these photos had been posted throughout the afternoon, during my ceremony, while I was receiving my award, while I was walking across the stage. They were not at some unavoidable meeting. They were at a party. All of them, together, choosing to celebrate Delilah instead of watching me graduate. They had not forgotten me. They had chosen to ignore me, on purpose. I walked back to my dorm room in a daze. I was still wearing my cap and gown because I could not bring myself to take them off. My honor cord swung against my chest with every step. My plaque was clutched in one hand, my diploma in the other. Grace had texted me asking where I went, but I did not respond. I could not face her right now, could not face her happy family and their matching t-shirts and their overwhelming love. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. The dorm room that had been my sanctuary for 4 years suddenly felt like a prison. The walls were too close. The air was too thick. I could not breathe. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. I lost track. Then something shifted inside me. The grief that had been choking me started to transform. It hardened, sharpened, became something else entirely. Anger. I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful and oblivious. "Evelyn." How was it I gripped the phone so hard my fingers ached? "You did not come," I said. "None of you came." "Oh, honey, we watched the live stream for a bit. The party was so wonderful. Delilah was so happy. You promised you would be there. You promised." There was a sigh on the other end, that heavy, irritated sigh I had heard 1,000 times before. "Do not start this," she said. "You know how important this party was. You are always so dramatic about everything." Dramatic. I was being dramatic, for being upset that my entire family skipped my graduation to throw a party for my sister. "I graduated magna cum laude," I said, my voice rising. "I got an award. I am going to Johns Hopkins. Not one of you could be bothered to show up." "We were busy." Her voice had turned cold now. "The world does not revolve around you, Evelyn. Your sister's engagement is a once-in-a-lifetime thing." I laughed. It came out broken, almost hysterical. "And my graduation is not—" "You will have other graduations. PhD, whatever. Stop making everyone feel guilty for having lives." In the background, I could hear laughter, music. The party was still going. "I have to go," my mother said. "We will celebrate next time you visit." The line went dead. I sat there in the silence, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. 22 years of being invisible. 22 years of hoping they would see me, love me, be proud of me. And this was what I got. They would never change. I would never be enough for them. Not because of anything I did wrong, but because they simply did not care. That night I scrolled through our family group chat. Hundreds of messages about Delilah's party. Photos upon photos upon photos. Congratulations flooding in from aunts and uncles and cousins. Not a single message about my graduation. I scrolled further back looking at months of conversation. When Marcus got promoted at work, there were dozens of messages celebrating him. When Delilah won a local beauty competition, my mother had sent a novel's worth of praise. When I got accepted to Johns Hopkins, my father responded with a single thumbs up emoji. When I announced my scholarship, my mother wrote 2 words. That is nice. The pattern was undeniable when I saw it all laid out in front of me. I was not part of this family. I was adjacent to it, occupying space they tolerated. An afterthought at best. The anger that had been building in my chest hardened into something else, something like resolve, something like freedom. I did not want their approval anymore. I did not want their attention, their love, their acknowledgement. I wanted freedom from hoping they would change, freedom from the constant disappointment, freedom from being the invisible one. And then it hit me. The simplest, clearest thought I had ever had. I could give them exactly what they wanted, a life without me in it. The next week was a blur of activity. I moved out of my dorm, officially graduated, said goodbye to Grace, and promised to stay in touch. But instead of going home for the summer as I had originally planned, I changed course entirely. I called Johns Hopkins and deferred my start date by 1 semester. I told them there was a family emergency that required my attention. They were understanding and accommodating. I used my savings to rent a studio apartment in Detroit, 3 hours away from Indianapolis, far enough that no one would stumble across me by accident. I told no one where I was going. And then I began the process of erasing myself. I researched the legal requirements for changing my name, file a petition, publish a notice in a newspaper, attend a court hearing. It was simpler than I expected. Anyone could do it for any reason as long as they were not trying to evade debts or commit fraud. I chose my new name carefully. I wanted something that felt like mine, something that had no connection to the family that had rejected me. Harper Reed. Harper because I loved Harper Lee's writing, her courage, her willingness to tell difficult truths. Reed because it was common enough to disappear into sharp enough to remember. No family significance, no ties to the past. I filed the paperwork and waited for my court date. Meanwhile, I cut contact with my family gradually. I responded to their occasional texts with short, vague answers. Busy with moving, lots of preparation for school, talk soon. They did not push for more. They barely noticed my withdrawal, confirmation that I was making the right choice. 3 months after graduation, I stood in a Detroit courtroom. The judge reviewed my paperwork, asked a few routine questions, and approved my petition. A new birth certificate was issued, a new social security card, a new driver's license. Evelyn Marie Porter ceased to exist. Harper Reed was born. I walked out of that courthouse and felt lighter than I had in 22 years. I had shed my old skin, my old name, my old life. I was free. But before I disappeared completely, I had one last thing to do. I wrote an email and sent it to my family. The subject line was simple: goodbye. To the Porter family, I wrote, "By the time you read this, I will be gone. Not dead, just gone from your lives." On my graduation day, I stood alone in a stadium of 3,000 people. My family chose an engagement party over watching me receive my degree and my award. That was my breaking point, but it was not the first time you showed me I did not matter. It was just the last. I have changed my name legally. I am moving to a location I will not share. I am cutting all contact permanently. Please do not look for me. You will not find me. And honestly, I do not think you will try very hard. I spent 22 years hoping you would see me, love me, be proud of me. I am done hoping. I am choosing myself now. This is not revenge. This is survival. I cannot keep being invisible in a family that refuses to see me. Maybe someday you will understand. Maybe you will not. Either way, I will finally be free. Goodbye, the daughter you never bothered to know. I pressed send. Then I blocked all their numbers, blocked them on social media, on email, on everything, changed my phone number, deleted my old accounts. I packed my car with everything I owned: clothes, books, my laptop, my diploma, and my plaque, because I had earned those things and they were mine. Then I drove away from Michigan without looking back. Destination Baltimore, Maryland. Johns Hopkins awaited me in January. Harper Reed was starting over. I arrived in Baltimore in September, 4 months after my graduation. The city was unfamiliar and overwhelming, full of strangers who knew nothing about me. I rented a small apartment in Charles Village close to the Johns Hopkins campus. It was tiny, just a studio with a Murphy bed and a kitchenette, but it was mine. Those first weeks were terrifying. I knew no one. I had no connections. Every time someone asked me about myself, I had to remember to say Harper instead of Evelyn. I practiced my new signature, rehearsed my new backstory. I was from the Midwest. My family and I were not close. I was here to start fresh. I got a part-time job at a research lab on campus using my new credentials and my new name. The work was familiar, comforting. Pipettes and petri dishes and data analysis. Things that made sense. Things I could control. January arrived, and with it my PhD program. I threw myself into my studies with a ferocity that surprised even me. I was studying infectious disease epidemiology, specializing in antibiotic resistance, the same passion I had discovered at Michigan, but this time everything felt different. I was not studying to prove myself to my family. I was studying because I loved it, because it mattered, because I wanted to help people. My professors noticed my dedication. Dr. Yolanda Freeman, my faculty advisor, pulled me aside after a seminar one day. "You work harder than anyone I have seen in 20 years, she said. "I have a lot to prove," I replied. She studied me carefully. To whom I paused. To myself. She nodded, and something in her eyes told me she understood more than I was saying. I made new friends, real friends, people who became my chosen family. There was Diane, a 30-year-old immunology student with a wicked sense of humor and a heart of gold. James, a 27-year-old virology researcher who could make anyone laugh even during the most stressful exam periods. Priya, a 25-year-old public health student who had immigrated from India and understood what it meant to build a new life from nothing. We studied together, complained about our dissertations together, celebrated small victories with cheap wine and cheaper pizza. For the first time in my life, I had people who showed up, people who remembered my birthday, people who asked how I was doing and actually listened to the answer. I slowly learned to trust again, to open up, to let people in. I told them an edited version of my past. My family was not supportive. I had to leave. They did not push for details. They just accepted me as I was. 6 months after I disappeared, I got a Google alert. I had set up alerts for my old name just to keep track of what was happening back in Indianapolis. A news article popped up. Family searches for missing woman. My stomach dropped. I clicked on the article and found my parents giving an interview to a local news station. My mother was crying, tissues clutched in her hand. "Our daughter Evelyn disappeared." She sobbed. "We do not know why. She just stopped responding to our calls." My father sat next to her looking solemn. "If anyone has seen her, please contact us. We just want to know she is safe." The article included my old photo, my old name. Tips were requested, prayers were offered. I sat at my desk for a long time staring at that article. But then I remembered the empty seats, the Instagram photos, the engagement party that was more important than my graduation, the decades of being invisible, overlooked, forgotten. They were not upset because they missed me. They were upset because they looked bad. A missing daughter was embarrassing for their perfect family image. It raised questions they did not want to answer. I closed the browser and did not look back. The search faded from the news after a few weeks. No one tried very hard to find Harper Reed because no one knew that name existed. I had covered my tracks well. I continued building my new life. Year 2 of my PhD, I published my first paper. I was a co-author on a major study about antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and my name appeared in a respected journal. Dr. Harper Reed. It looked right. It felt right. I got invited to present at a national conference. I stood at a podium in front of hundreds of researchers and talked about my work, and no one knew that I used to be a girl named Evelyn, who cried alone after her graduation. Dr. Freeman nominated me for a competitive fellowship, and I won. Full funding for the next 2 years, plus a research budget for my own projects. My career was taking off in ways I had never imagined possible. But more importantly, I was happy. not the desperate approval-seeking happiness I had chased my entire childhood. This was something quieter, more solid, pride in my own work, satisfaction in my own achievements, contentment that came from within, not from anyone else's validation. I did not need anyone's approval anymore. I created my own. Year 3, I presented at an international conference in Geneva. I met researchers from around the world, exchanged ideas, made connections that would shape my career for years to come. One of those connections was Dr. Samuel Turner. Sam. He was an epidemiologist working at the CDC in Atlanta, brilliant and kind, and possessed of a dry wit that caught me off guard. We collaborated on a paper together, then another. Professional respect became friendship, became something deeper. Sam did not ask about my past. He accepted my present. Everyone has chapters they do not read aloud, he said once. I am just glad I am in your current chapter. By year 4, my life was unrecognizable from the one I had left behind. Diane, James, and Priya were my closest friends. We spent holidays together because none of us had traditional family situations. I hosted Thanksgiving for the first time in my life, cooking a turkey that was slightly overcooked and sides that were slightly underseasoned, but no one cared. We were together. That was what mattered. Sam became my partner. We moved in together in year 5. His family in Atlanta welcomed me with open arms. His parents, his 2 sisters, they did not ask why I never mentioned my own family. They just included me without question. For the first time in my life, I understood what family was supposed to feel like. People who show up, people who listen, people who celebrate each other's achievements instead of competing over scraps of attention. The invisible daughter had become visible. Not by begging for attention from people who would never give it, by creating a life so bright that it could not be ignored. 6 years after my graduation, I was 34 years old and finishing my PhD dissertation. My defense was scheduled in 3 months. I had published 4 papers presented at 6 conferences, and had job offers coming in from academic institutions and government agencies alike. Dr. Harper Reed was a name that meant something in my field. One afternoon, I was in my apartment reviewing my dissertation notes when my phone rang. Unknown number. I usually ignore unknown calls, but something made me answer. Hello, Evelyn. My blood turned to ice. It was Marcus. Evelyn, I know it is you. Please do not hang up. I sat down slowly, my legs suddenly unable to hold my weight. How did you find this number, private investigator? It took years. You covered your tracks really well. Silence stretched between us. 6 years of silence. Marcus spoke again, his voice unsteady. Evelyn, Harper, whatever you go by now, Dad is dying. I said nothing. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors say he has weeks, maybe a month. He wants to see you. He has been asking for you every day. I waited for some emotional response to hit me. Grief, shock, sadness, something. I felt nothing. Mom is a wreck, Marcus continued. Delilah is pregnant due any day now. Everything is falling apart. And you think I can fix it? He paused. We want you to come home, just once. Let Dad say goodbye. I closed my eyes. Home. That house had never been my home. Those people had never been my family. He had 22 years to say hello, I said. He chose not to. I know we messed up. The graduation thing. Marcus's voice cracked. I have thought about it so many times. I should have been there. I promised you, and I just did not show up, and I have never forgiven myself for that. You should not have. I agreed. But you were not there. Can you forgive us? Can you at least try? I thought about it for a long moment. I will think about it, I finally said. Do not call again. If I decide to come, I will reach out. I hung up before he could respond. For the next 3 days, I barely slept. I talked to Sam about the call, and he listened without judgment. What do you want to do? He asked. I do not know. Part of me wants to go, to say my piece, to look them in the eye as Harper Reed and show them who I became without them. Part of me never wants to see them again. Sam took my hand. Is it wrong that I do not feel sad about my father dying? You cannot manufacture feelings you do not have, he said gently. He was your father biologically, but he was not your dad. not in the ways that matter. I called Dr. Freeman for advice. Over the years, she had become more than a mentor. She was a maternal figure, the mother I wished I had been born to. Only you can decide this, she told me. But ask yourself this question. Will you regret not going, not for them, for yourself? I sat with that question for another 2 days. I wrote in my journal, processing emotions I had buried for 6 years. The anger, the grief, the abandonment, all of it. In the end, I realized I needed to go. Not for forgiveness, not for reconciliation, for closure. I needed to stand in front of them as the woman I had become, as Dr. Harper Reed, successful and whole and thriving. I needed to close this chapter of my life permanently, not leave it hanging open like an unfinished sentence. I booked a flight to Indianapolis. I flew alone. Sam offered to come with me, but I needed to do this by myself. This was my past, my pain, my closure to find. I rented a car at the airport and drove to my childhood home. The streets were familiar, but strange, like looking at photographs of a place you visited in a dream. Trees that used to seem enormous now looked ordinary. Houses that used to seem wealthy now looked merely comfortable. I pulled into the driveway of my parents' house and sat in the car for 10 minutes, gathering courage, preparing myself for what came next. The house looked smaller than I remembered, less impressive, less intimidating. Just a house, just walls and a roof and windows. I walked to the front door and rang the bell. Delilah answered. She was very pregnant, her belly straining against her maternity dress. When she saw me, she gasped. "Oh my God, Evelyn, you actually came." "It is Harper now," I said. "Legally." Her eyes filled with tears. "I cannot believe. Come in, please." I stepped into the house. It had not changed much. Same furniture, same artwork on the walls, same photos everywhere. I noticed immediately that there were still no photos of me, even after I disappeared, even after I became a mystery, a missing daughter, a cautionary tale. They had not bothered to put up a single picture. My mother was in the living room sitting on the couch. She had aged significantly in 6 years. Her hair was gray now, her face lined with exhaustion and worry. When she saw me, she struggled to her feet. "Evelyn," she breathed. "My baby." I held up my hand. "Do not." My voice came out harder than I intended, but I did not soften it. "I am here for Dad." "Where is he?" "Upstairs." "In the bedroom." "He does not have long." Marcus appeared from the kitchen. He looked older too, the golden child showing signs of tarnish. When he saw me, relief flooded his face. "You came. Thank you." "I am not here for you," I said. "I am here for me. I need to say what I came to say. Then I am leaving." They exchanged uncomfortable looks but said nothing. I walked upstairs alone. Each step felt heavier than the last. The hallway stretched out before me, lined with doors I used to know. My old bedroom was to the left, probably a guest room now, or storage, or nothing. I pushed open the door to the master bedroom. My father was in a hospital bed in the center of the room. Machines beeped around him, oxygen tubes ran to his nose. He was barely recognizable. The man who had never had time for me, the man who missed every recital and every award ceremony, and every graduation, was now a skeleton draped in yellowing skin. He turned his head slowly when he heard the door open. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Evelyn, my girl, you came." I pulled a chair beside his bed and sat down. I studied his face for a long moment. This was the man who had shaped my childhood through his absence, through every event he missed, through every time he chose Marcus or Delilah or a golf game or a business deal over me. "I did not come to comfort you," I said. "I came to tell you something." He nodded weakly. I know I failed you." "You did not fail me," I corrected him. "You ignored me. There is a difference. Failure implies trying. You never tried." He was crying now, tears sliding down his sunken cheeks. "I was a fool. I did not know what I had. Marcus was easy to love. He was right there demanding attention impossible to overlook. Delilah was easy to spoil. Your mother saw herself in her. But you were quiet. I did not know how to reach you." "You did not try to reach me, that was the point. You did not bother. I know, I am so sorry. Can you forgive me? I considered the question carefully. This was the moment I had imagined for years. My father finally seeing me, finally apologizing, finally asking for forgiveness. I do not know if I can forgive you, I said honestly, but I can let go of the anger. I spent 6 years building a life without you. I have a partner who loves me, friends who show up for me, a career I am proud of. I did not need your approval to become someone. I just needed to stop waiting for it. He reached for my hand. I did not take it. I am proud of you, he said, even though I have no right to be. I looked at him steadily. You are right. You do not have the right. But thank you for saying it, even if it is 6 years too late. I stood up. Will I see you again? He asked. No, I said. This is goodbye. I hope you find peace. But my peace is elsewhere. I walked out of the room without looking back. I walked downstairs to find my family waiting in the living room. My mother, Marcus, Delilah. All of them watching me with varying expressions of hope and fear and guilt. Are you leaving already? My mother asked. Stay for dinner. Let us talk. There is nothing to talk about. Marcus stepped forward. Come on, we are family. Something in me snapped. No, we are not. Family shows up, family sees each other. Family does not leave someone standing alone at their graduation while they drink champagne 40 miles away. Delilah's face crumpled. We made a mistake. Cannot you let it go? I did let it go. I let go of all of you. That is how I healed. By accepting you would never change. And building a life with people who actually love me. My mother started crying. I do love you. I always have. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had spent my entire childhood focused on everyone but me. Who had compared me unfavorably to my siblings at every opportunity. Who had made me feel invisible in my own home. Maybe you do, I said. In your own way. But your love was never enough. It was always conditional, always secondary, always an afterthought. I deserved better. And I found it. Without you. Marcus cleared his throat. What about when Dad dies? The funeral. I said my goodbye. I will not be there. Send me an email if you need to. I will not respond. But you can send it. I picked up my purse and walked to the door. Will we ever hear from you again? Delilah asked. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Maybe someday. But not because you deserve it. Because I might decide I want to. That is the difference. My presence in your life is no longer your right. It is my choice. I opened the door and stepped outside. I did not look back at the house I grew up in. I did not wave goodbye to the family I was leaving behind. I got in my rental car and drove away. For the first 5 miles, I cried. Not tears of grief, tears of release. 28 years of hoping and waiting and being disappointed finally pouring out of me. Then I stopped crying, wiped my face, took a deep breath, and kept driving toward my real life. My father died 2 weeks later. Marcus sent me an email with the service details and the obituary. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. I did not attend the funeral. I had said my goodbye. There was nothing left for me in that house, in that town, in that family. I sent flowers anonymously to the church. Not for him, not for them, for the idea of what he could have been, for the father I wished I had known. I read the obituary online later. Richard Porter, beloved husband and father, survived by wife Judith, son Marcus, daughter Delilah, and 6 grandchildren. No mention of a third daughter. They had erased me from his death, just like they had erased me from his life. I was not angry, just confirmed in what I already knew. I closed the browser and returned to my dissertation. 3 months later, I defended my PhD successfully. Dr. Harper Reed officially. The committee gave me a standing ovation. Dr. Freeman hugged me so tightly I thought my ribs might crack. Your parents would be so proud, she said. I smiled at her. The ones who matter are. Sam was in the audience front row center cheering louder than anyone. Diane, James, and Priya were holding ridiculous homemade signs with my name written in glitter. My chosen family celebrating my achievement, the way families should. After the defense, we went to my favorite restaurant. I sat at the head of a long table surrounded by people who loved me, not because they had to, because they chose to. 5 years later, I am living the life I always dreamed of. I work at the CDC in Atlanta in the Infectious Disease Division. I am a published researcher, a respected expert in my field. I travel to conferences around the world speaking about antibiotic resistance and public health policy. I married Sam 2 years ago. It was a small ceremony, just our closest friends and his family. His parents walked me down the aisle because I asked them to, and they cried happy tears the entire time. I wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers, and when I said my vows, I meant every word. We live in a beautiful house in Virginia Highland now. It has a big backyard with a garden I tend on weekends. Sam makes me coffee every morning and tells me he loves me every night. It is the kind of quiet happiness I never knew was possible. And now I am expecting my first child, a daughter. She is due in 8 weeks. I spend hours imagining who she will become, what she will love, what kind of mother I will be. I think about my birth family sometimes. I heard through social media that Delilah divorced Brad and is now on her third marriage. Marcus's business failed, and he moved back in with our mother. Our mother sold the big house and lives in a small condo now. The Golden children did not stay golden without our father's money propping them up. I feel no satisfaction in their struggles, just neutrality. They are strangers now, characters in a story I closed long ago. I write in my pregnancy journal to my daughter, letters she will read someday when she is old enough to understand. My sweet girl, I write, by the time you read this, you will know our family story differently than I lived it. You will know your grandmother and grandfather as Sam's parents, the ones who send birthday cards and show up for every recital. You might ask someday about my family, the ones who share your blood but not your life. Here is what I want you to know. Some families are given, some are chosen. The ones who matter are the ones who show up. I will always show up for you. Every play, every game, every graduation, every moment big or small. You will never stand alone looking for my face in the crowd, because I know what that feels like, and I will never let you feel it. You are already so loved, little one. By me, by your dad, by grandparents who cannot wait to meet you. You are not invisible. You never will be. That is my promise to you. Love always, Mom. I close the journal and put my hand on my belly. I feel her kick and I smile. I think about 22-year-old Evelyn standing alone in her cap and gown. That girl was so lost, so desperate for love from people who could not give it. She had to break completely to rebuild, had to become someone new to find herself. You cannot make people love you the right way. You can only decide how long you will accept the wrong way. I spent 22 years waiting for my family to see me. It took one day of being completely invisible to finally see myself. Changing my name was not running away. It was running toward the life I deserved, the love I needed, the person I wanted to become. Sometimes you have to let go of who you were to become who you are meant to be. Family is not an obligation. It is a privilege that must be earned. Blood gives you relatives. Behavior gives you family. The people at my wedding, at my defense in my life now, they earned that privilege. My birth family did not. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation. I forgave them enough to let go of the anger. But forgiveness does not mean reopening the door. Some doors close for good reasons, and mine closed for the best reason of all, my own survival. The sun is setting over the Atlanta skyline. I'm sitting on my back porch, coffee in hand, watching the light change. Sam will be home from work soon. The nursery is almost finished. My life is full in ways I never dared to dream. 6 years ago, I had nothing. No name, no family, no future. Now I have everything that matters. Built with my own hands, chosen by my own heart. The invisible daughter became visible, not by demanding to be seen, by walking away from people who refuse to look, and finding a world full of people who could not look away. If you ever feel invisible to the people who should love you most, know this. You are not the problem. Their blindness is not your darkness. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappear from the people who cannot see you and reappear as someone they will never have the privilege of knowing. I vanished as Evelyn, unloved and unseen. I emerged as Harper, chosen and cherished, and I have never once looked back. Now I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt invisible to the people who were supposed to love you most? Have you ever had to make the hard choice to walk away from family to find yourself? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences matter, and this community is here to support you. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and know they are not alone. And if you are not subscribed yet, make sure you click subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. You never know who is struggling in silence, feeling invisible, waiting for permission to choose themselves. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Your support means everything to me. I hope you carry this message with you. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be loved. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is build a family that chooses you. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to your hearts. And remember, you are never invisible to the people who truly matter. Until next time.